Hello again. This is the man in the shack. And in this second video, I am going to. We're now going to take a look inside actually Xcom2 and take a look at the character pool part where I've got these things stored and start. I look at kind of the character pool dynamics, and we'll call it that. So title screen, Duke. All right, character pool. Let's see. All right, so what I've got in here is my full list as it is, and I'm not going to be deleting things out of here right now because I've got changes that I've made here. But I'm going to demonstrate a few things, and so let's take a look at when you've got the character pool. This is kind of where things are. You got create character, you got import character, you got the list, which is what your characters are right now. You got you could select them all, you could deselect them all, you could select one guy, right? And I could delete that, I could export it, and different things. I'll demonstrate these. Character pool usage is the last thing. This was something they added in after the fact because of people were doing this sort of the kind of thing that I'm doing. So character pool only is what we leave it on here. There's random and character pool, which will create random characters along with it, and random only. Both of which are kind of a bad idea if you got a lot of cosmetic mods because you get some really weird looking crap if you do it. But if you're doing something like this and you leave it in character pool only, then you're cool. If you go back to wanting to do it random, you just take that stuff off. Make your new campaign or whatever. But when you're doing GI Joes, you don't want them to be mixed with random guys because I don't know, it doesn't feel right, right? You don't want six, you don't want five guys that are the right guys and one guy that's like the crappy core figure that you had to fill in, so that you had a few more soldiers or something. And he's got some, whatever. There's a certain aspect of it, though. I mean, I did that in the 80s, too. There were, you would make up extra guys or whatever, like, because there were extra parts, right? That was that's, we'll get into that aspect of it, too. This is just like making the guys with parts. You unscrew the torso, and, there you go. So, anyway, this is the character pool. And you can see here these are our GI Joes. They're arranged by file name. Like we got their name and we got their code name, right? And so looking at any particular guy, we look at this as a list of data, which is what it is. And you've got a first name, code name, last name, right? In the case of someone where they don't have a code name, such as this fella here, there is no there's no thing in quotes, right? So you got a thing in quotes, and then another thing, right? Or a thing and then a thing, which just looks like two things. You could potentially have one that's just one whole thing, but I'm not doing that. In every guy, I've got a first name and a last name. It's just good. It's just good practice, right? The other thing is they've got to be unique, right? If I have two guys named Alvin Kibbe. And which I could do. I could create two characters and call them the same name easily. But what happens is it only ends up seeing one of them, right? Because this thing is not stored in kind of an array so much as it is in a dictionary. In sort of terms of internal, sort of programming, sort of data structure-y way. When it sees Alvin Kibbe, it's looking for that, and it's going to find the one that it's going to find. If you have two of them, I think I don't know if it just chooses an arbitrary one that's based on that, or if it chooses the last one, or I don't remember what it is. But I learned very early that names must be unique. So the first name last name combination must be unique. So when we get to somebody like Snake Eyes, who doesn't have a name, essentially, there is no name. I'm not going to make one up. On his file card, it literally says classified. And so that's his last name. Classified becomes a category rather than a name. So if I'm looking at this in a data sense, I've got names, 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 and then I've got a category which is a special kind of name. That's why I put it in all caps and so forth. File G10, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then Hawk is not in this list right now. So so G10 is that's the way that this the index basically that I made for myself and the thing, and the John Q. Puppet guy didn't count. But these guys, Snake Eyes is the 10th guy in the G.I. Joe stack, G10. Looking down later, it's more readily apparent when you look at the Cobras. Cobra Commander, for example, there are 2 versions of Cobra Commander that I have currently, and to account for that, I further make this. He's file CO1 each time, right? That's his first name is file CO1, Cobra 01, right? Cobra Commander. So he's classified is his last name. Classified AKA 1 is the commander when he's in disguise, right? There's a slick preview of something in that, right? So every time when Commander would take off his, he would go in disguise as a regular person instead of taking, he would take off his mask and stuff. That was what he looked like. Anyway, that was where I learned the word mufti. Yeah. When you're looking at guys, you've got this stack, and they're all unique, they've got let's see. Let's talk about imports. I'm not going to talk about create character. I'm going to talk about that one in a different video. Talk about imports, because that's where this comes, right? Like I said, I'm not going to delete it, but pretend this list is empty. You wanted to import, like you want to bring it in, you're just playing the game for the first time, and you want to bring it in. So this is an empty list, blah, 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 none of these are there. Import character is where you're going to go. You've signed up for this character pool or any other character pool, and what's going to happen is when you open this list, there's this developers thing, that's something that was there from the beginning. Demos and replays is something there's from the beginning. These other ones are ones that, like all of these ones with the dates, these are things, the intermediate things. You're not going to have these because this is just me, saving my work as I go, basically. But there are 2 of them currently that would be there, and that's GI Space Joe and Green Shirts. And when you're saying import and you want to go into G.I. Joe, then you can, of course, import the entire pool, or I could, pick out any one of these guys, right? And this is just the G.I. Joe pool, where it's all, where it's all kind of like in one big list. None of those green shirts are in this. I'm not going to do that, though. Then there's the green shirts list itself, which takes a second, and then we've got there are 80 identical green shirts in there, and I'll talk about the green shirts in a minute. So that's how the importing works, and basically what you would do is go to that thing from a blank list here. You would import characters, import GI, go to GI Joe, import the entire pool, then go back, import green shirts, import the entire pool, and then you're gonna have this list, right? This is slightly out of whack because I've got some extra guys here. See, I am adding Hawk. He's just not in the stack yet. I've got these are the extra guys that I've made since I had imported this thing, and this is because you're looking at an intermediate version. This isn't exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So you've got all the GI Joes, and then you've got all the green shirts, and all the green shirts are, you can see, are named same name, 01, 02, 03, because why? We got to have unique names, right? And so, to have 2 guys named, 2 the same guy named the same thing, 01, 02, 03. So, let's see. That's imports. Let's go ahead and talk about, okay. The way that this works is that in the game, you're going to when you're in the game and you've got a soldier who's a rookie. And that rookie goes out and he doesn't have a class. And that's how this game starts, right? The game starts with 4 rookies and there with no class, right? And so they go and they get their class based on whatever they get the promotion from the first mission, and then they got a class, right? So if the thing is, let's look at Breaker. The thing is, okay, what we're gonna look at is this part here. Can appear as soldier, can appear as VIP, can appear as dark VIP, and these are the roles that he could be, right? So really, with Breaker, I don't want him to actually be any of these. I have settled for VIP currently. So the way these work, basically, is if he's checked off as can appear as soldier, then he can appear as one of the random rookies, right? And it would be him, and he would have all of his stuff, and his name would be Alvin Kibbe, and so forth. He wouldn't be called Breaker yet, of course, because he'd be a rookie. They don't, like you don't. There's as characters advance through the levels. There's what, 8 levels or something. That they gain in stuff, right? They gain new attributes and so forth as they go and become more and more specialized and so forth. When they first start out, there's there's nothing. So the thing is, I don't want Breaker as a rookie to end up being a grenadier, right? It doesn't fit. Breaker needs to be somebody, in this game in particular, Breaker needs to be a hacker, right? Really, really very much, Breaker needs to be a hacker. And so it means he needs to be a specialist. Not only does he need to be a specialist, he needs to be a combat specialist, or a combat hacking specialist. But that's up to you as you build the guy. You got to make sure that you're doing it right. That's why I made that Google Doc with all the lists on it, to make sure that we can say that we build Breaker in the correct way. Now he's easy; he's just a complete right side specialist. But there are others that are more complex, and that's others that are not one of the vanilla classes, right? Breaker is a specialist, which is a vanilla class. He's a combat hacker specialist, which is a very, very vanilla thing. And it just so happens that it fits him to a T. But that, I'll go into that more as we get as we get into that. As far as what we're really talking about here, though, is that I don't want him to be a rookie for that reason. I want rookies to be nobody. They can't. I can't have any regular guy, like any of my dudes, be a rookie, because they're all kind of like this. I can't have Gung Ho being a sharpshooter. That just doesn't feel right. So the way you do this, ideally, none of these would be checked, right? Because, okay, that was soldier, and then you got VIP, and then you got dark VIP. Now, VIP is people like engineers and scientists in the game and so forth, people that you're going to rescue. And they'll become part of your team, but they're going to become people who are back at the base. Now, for some soldiers, such as Doc, or Lifeline, in particular, those two are probably the best examples that here he is, that Doc should 100% only be a VIP. I never seeing Doc hold this gun just makes me shiver. He shouldn't even be holding that. According to himself, according to the Geneva Convention, he's not even allowed to hold a gun. So I can't ever put Doc in the field. I can't ever put Lifeline in the field, because the only way to level these guys up is to have them kill things. And I can't have Doc and I can't have Lifeline kill things. So Doc and Lifeline in particular, and others, should be VIPs. They shouldn't be in the field. I want them in the game. I want them there. I definitely want Doc in my Advanced Warfare Center being the doctor, essentially. And furthermore, I want, when I'm clearing out alien debris, by gosh, I want it to be Tollbooth, with this construction hat, and things like that. So there are some that are just very appropriate for that. But when we look at a regular field soldier, that there's that this is a concern. So VIP. Dark VIP, of course. The enemy soldiers that you're going to capture. Of course, he's not that. So ideally, this is Breaker. So I could do this, and this is what I used to do. I would like uncheck everything, and then you go and you leave the game, and you open the game back up, and what happens is this is what's going on. If it sees none when the game initializes, it will do this. I very much would like for somebody to make a mod where we have there's like, is held in reserve or something like that. Just reserve, and have a fourth checkbox to where none of these would apply, but it wouldn't reset the soldier. But hey, maybe somebody will make that mod at some point, and then you'll look at this video and go, hey, what are you talking about? It's there. Well, okay. So right now it's not. Anyway, so I leave them all on as VIP, and when I play the game at this point, I sort of just tacitly accept that I'm going to get some guys in my base that are not the guys that I want on my base, and and everybody So, that's an aspect of this whole thing that I'm still that I'm still kind of like don't have down, kind of the way I really want it. Once we have that thing though, then it'll be perfect. Because then we can just, all of these guys like Breaker and Duke and all those guys who are only ever going to be in the field, they need to have none of these things checked, a fourth reserve check, and then Doc, Lifeline, those guys only appears VIP, Cobra Soldier only appears VIP, so forth. Anyway, that's how that is. Now the way we get around that is that when you're in the actual game, and I'll demonstrate this in a different video, when you're in the actual game, that you are, there's a mod called Load from Character Pool, and it's absolutely essential to this. It's the only mod that's actually essential for this type of gameplay. And what it does is that at any point in the thing, you may change the first and last name, which is the key, to any soldier, and then say load from character pool. It's part of the it's part of the inside of the thing. That's it doesn't show inside this part because this is the character pool, but inside this character info inside the game, there's another little slot that says load from character pool, and it will do so. And if I change the first name and last name inside the thing to Alvin Kibbe and say load from character pool, then boom, here's Breaker. So that's how that works. And yes, the corporal versus sergeant thing. The thing is, when you're doing that, so you let's say you go on the first mission, you got 4 guys. Those 4 guys become the 4 different classes or whatever, right? And you got a specialist and a grenadier and a sharpshooter and a ranger, right? And so here's the thing: is you choose your guys and the order that you want them in, right? If I say my specialist, it's actually because when I make the thing, Breaker's not actually my first specialist. Scarlet is my first specialist. So I would say Scarlet. I would rename that person to Shanna O'Hara, and and then that rookie or that now not rookie that now corporal squatty. The ranks go. What do they go? They go rookie, squatty, corporal, sergeant, and then that's the top of our stack. And then above that is there's more ranks, but those 4 ranks are the ones that are important, right? So when they're a rookie, they're going to be a green shirt. Yeah, it's a generic dude. That's what these guys are, is green shirts. That was a term that was coined, I think, in the early 2000s. It was like Devil's Due was the first place I ever saw a green shirt, but they were in the background of the cartoon all the time, right? Whenever they had to have, there was whenever there was a bunch of, like a big scene where there's a big battle or whatever, there was a bunch of generic G.I. Joes in the background. That's these guys. They're called green shirts. And so John Q. Public is his name. And he, so you got 4 of those dudes, and they go out on their missions, and they get a class. And you say, I want the first guy to be Scarlet, and then and so she's now no longer a rookie, she's a squatty, right? She still doesn't have a nickname. They don't actually get their nickname until they're a sergeant, right? So Squatty and Corporal, you just kind of have to, move them along and say, I know this is Scarlet, so I want to choose yada yada for, for whatever perks that I want to go ahead and get for her, and say, like have that, build her towards Scarlet, and then at Sergeant, when she receives a nickname, what'll happen is she'll receive the wrong nickname, and so you got to go in and load from character pool again. But that's how it works. So at the very beginning, you got green shirts. You get a class. You build a guy from the appropriate class. You bring in the appropriate guy or whatever. The first ranger I get is always going to be Snake Eyes, etc. That's how those work. I think I'm going to cut this off for right now, and the next thing will be a actual character creation. I'll cover that in the next video. So bye for now, I guess.